Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Is that my tagline?
I think so.
You think I've said that like probably 500 times, and here I am. Anyway, guys, it is a Homestead happening show this week, and today we're going to talk about midwinter on the homestead, a new segment on homesteading 101, like planning your homestead. We've got lots of drama that's gone in and on in the holler since the break. So we're going to tell you some of those stories, a new financial tracking system that I've set up that he doesn't know how to use. And yeah, whatever else comes out of this dude's mouth. Tell me, though, in the live stream, can you hear me okay? Because we're trying some new microphones today. And I want to make sure now at the beginning of the show that we don't need this like shift fire, run into my studio and plug in there. So just let us know. Why don't you say something too?
I already said something.
Where's your microphone?
Right here.
It's covered by your shirt. You need to have that. Jeez. First of all, yeah, it goes like this. It goes on the outside. There we go. It's probably lots of. Man, do you really need this on?
I'm freezing.
Okay. Well, anyway. Okay. So Andrea says we sound great. Does tactical sound like you can hear him? Okay. I'm getting lots of yes, we can hear you. I can't see your comments real well if you don't put them in all caps because my computer's farther away and I have not figured out how to like beam up to my TV without messing up the audio yet. So maybe we'll have that done by next week. We have made this change because I'm tired of fighting with him over the microphone. And it always feels like to this introvert that I'm sitting way too close to that guy when we do a live stream. So we're going to come to you from here with a hole in my wall and we'll do the show from there. And I'm going to ask you to explain that later, not right now.
At least the vowels are accessible.
Before we jump into this show, I am going to talk about our featured event of today. And it is the Self-Reliance Festival in Camden, Tennessee. And it's April 6th and 7th. But tickets are on sale right now at selfreliancefestival.com. VIP tickets are going to go up next week. And that's a more expensive ticket with some added benefits. We delayed launching the VIP tickets while I talked with somebody who's sort of taking over the VIP experience for me to make sure we, emissary our VIPs through, make it a better experience. And I wanted to make sure that I had all of the things ready to go. So tickets are at an early bird price of $95 right now. I think that'll probably go through March 1st, but they are scheduled to go through February 15th right now. We'll get back to you on the schedule next week too. They go up to $105 after that. So definitely get those tickets while you can. It's going to be a great one. I'm talking to some great speakers who have not fully confirmed, but I do know we're going to have Toolman Tim. Of course, I will give a presentation. John Willis will give a presentation. We've got, as I said, Toolman Tim. Joel Riles has got a good one up in the works for you. I've got a demonstration of a kit cabin that can just be brought in and put together in a couple of hours. That happens the day before because that's one of our vendors. And then you can see how that is. They're going to pull it apart on Saturday and pack out. So you can also see how easy they go up and easy they come down. I looked at their pricing and it was like $11,000 and up for the kits, but they're like tiny cabins that are like Lego land snapped together. I mean, it's not quite that easy. Like there are screws and bolts and things that you have to put in, but I think that's going to be a pretty darn cool demonstration. So that's all over at selfreliancefestival.com. Click on tickets. If you want to be a vendor, go to the vendor tab and fill out the form. We are pre-screening vendors this time because last time we had to tell some vendors who paid, hey, we've already got somebody selling that and we don't want too many people selling the same thing or else they don't do as well at the festival. So we're going to pre-screen and then go from there. It's change in process a little bit. I also want to thank our two sponsors of today's show. One is Discount Mylar Bags. Toby from Discount Mylar Bags has been supporting my podcast and me from afar for a long time. And when we launched the sponsorship program, he was one of the first to jump on board. He sources Mylar bags in bulk and then passes on those savings to you. And he did it because when he was sort of in the prepper network originally, he was like, I don't have any skills. All I do is acquisitions for Dollar General. Well, he had all the relationships he needed to take those same skills and apply them to his community, which then turned into the business Discount Mylar Bags, which has become his full-time gig. He no longer works at Dollar General. And he's put together a bunch of resources for you on storing food and appropriately sizing your bags and your O2 absorbers and all those questions that come up when you get into that. And he put that in over at discountmylarbags.com. On the right-hand side, you can see those resources. Check those out. And definitely, if you're going to buy Discount Mylar Bags, if you're going to buy Mylar Bags, consider getting them at Discount Mylar Bags. You're supporting a local Tennessee business, somebody who's from our community. It's a great way to do it. They ship all over the place. Our second sponsor of today's show is Holler Roast Coffee. How do you like to start your day, Tactical?
Like this repeatedly.
Like that repeatedly. And do you have access to Holler Roast Coffee?
Only a little bit.
Holler Roast roasts everything to order, and we ship all over the U.S. You can get your coffee at hollerroast.com, and in the winter is a really great time to start with a hot cup cradled in your hands. So check out what we've got over at hollerroast.com. If you are an LFTM member, there is a discount in the membership portal. So let me know if you have trouble with that. Again, we are live streaming today from the living room, and I can't see what you're saying very well. I can just say, hi, Andrea, DFW, Strong Roots, Beth Emily, Mark K. I can't see what you're saying unless you say it in all caps. So if you want my attention or you have a question, let me know. I also don't have my controls here. So this is an experiment, and I think I may figure out how to have my computer here next time and a camera there. But we thought, why not? Like, the new living room is built. It's obviously not finished all the way, but at least we could stream from here, and you won't complain about your back hurting from that chair.
Not as much.
Yeah, not as much. Anyway, okay, first thing I want to talk about is this bottle of bourbon right here that's behind me. I put off this bottle of bourbon for a long time. This is not relating back to your show on addiction you did last week with Unloose the Goose After Party, but this is Early Times 100 proof bourbon, and I'm shaking it. Do you know why I'm shaking it?
I would imagine you have vanilla beans in there.
There's vanilla beans in here. I ran out of vanilla because I've been putting a few drops of vanilla in my coffee from time to time, which is delicious. And I had made vanilla as Christmas presents in like 2016 or 2017. And I ended up with so many gallons of vanilla that did not get given away, and I wasn't really selling them, that I just had unlimited vanilla. Well, it turns out there's no such thing as unlimited vanilla, but I thought I'd talk to you. So for this bottle of bourbon, I put in 10 vanilla beans. And what I do is I cut them the long way, and I also cut them in half so that they'd be fully submersed. And then I try to get something 90 proof or higher. I found this 100 proof bottle of bourbon. You can do it in vodka. Most people do it in vodka. This is not because it does not add flavors. But I ended up doing it in bourbon because it adds a little bit of flavor, which is interesting in the vanilla. So in about 6 weeks, I will taste this. I'm giving it a good shake every day this week just to absorb those flavors. And then once a week for 6 weeks, I'll taste it and decide if it's good enough to start using. I usually age this for 6 months, but because I'm out, I'll probably in 6 weeks start another one of these and start a rolling rotation. And then let me think. The last bottle of vanilla that I used took me about 4 months to use in cooking and whatever. So if you've never made homemade vanilla, it is the way to go. Sourcing the beans can be a little challenging. I've got a question in from Janet. What's in the knitting bag? That's a great question. I learned to knit over Christmas, Janet, and I learned to knit a circle, and this is the beginning of a circle that was cast on. It's called a Turkish cast on, and this is a chair sock because I have a new floor that scratches, and I do have the little felt round things that stick on the bottom of my chair legs, but they fall off. And I was at my mom's house and I saw that her chairs have chair socks that are much more decorative than the ones I'm making. But she taught me how to knit in a circle, how to cast on, how to cast off. And I have at this point 8 socks finished. So what I've been doing in the evening to kind of keep feeling productive when we watch TV, because we've been watching a TV show with and after dinner, is I'll knit a little bit. I get about half sock done per night. So that's, it's slow going, and I've got a lot of socks to make, but it's actually a good thing for me because I've been spinning and I don't love knitting, but eventually I need to do something with that yarn too. So I thought, why not? And also for Christmas, I was given this whole set of knitting needles here. So this is the first thing I ever spun, which I've knitted into a square. It's not quite done. But yeah, so a whole set of knitting needles. And then I raided Mom's extra supplies. And I have like this thing that sizes your needles that goes in there and measures stuff. And I don't have a cutting tool that I can take on the plane yet. I'm interested in ideas of what that looks like. I did get a box cutter with my king size mattress. Well, I mean, queen size mattress, because I haven't actually opened the king size mattress. But when I opened it, I didn't know it was in there. And I was just using scissors and it like exploded me and hit me in the face. And then the directions like fell out. Blah, 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 blah. And they were like, be careful about getting hit in the face when, you know, like they had the warning about how it will suddenly open. I'm like, well, that would have been really great to know before I opened it. But unfortunately, the instructions were inside. So that did not help me at all. But it came with one of those little plastic box cutters, which I don't know if you can take those on a plane or not.
Probably not.
Probably not. But it's got a little razor blade in it. But I don't know. Like it would be really like you'd have to take it all apart. And it would be a blade that was about, you know, half a razor blade long to kill somebody with. I mean, I know it's possible, but I feel like a pen is more dangerous. What do you think?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things more dangerous.
My mom has a really cool like necklace that's round. It has little blades inside that she apparently carries on the plane all the time. So it may just be that they don't know what that is. So I may get one of those and wear it as jewelry. We'll see. I don't know. I shouldn't have this hovering though. So my grandma always got her knitting needles inspected when mine are wood. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But I've never knitted in a circle, and it was really funny learning it for the first time because it starts out looking like a flat square too. And in the method I learned, and it wasn't until I was about halfway up the sock, I was like, I see the circle now. Mom's like, see, that's why we need to mark what the outside is and the inside. Like she has all of these things. So Clover makes those necklace cutters. Yeah, that's exactly what that's what my mom has. And apparently she gets that going on the plane. So the first thing we wanted to talk, so Tactical and I had a talk today. It is a new year. We're coming to you from a new corner of the living room with an open wall with valves. And I was like, well, this is a great time, you know, like any time's fine, but this is a great time to say, how can we be most useful to our listeners? And like, what are the segments we're going to cover this year? And I said, is there any segment that comes to mind? And he started talking about planning stuff on the homestead and how we plan stuff on the homestead. So we have a new segment. We're going to start with that today. It's Homestead Planning 101, which I sort of say in parentheses is the 15-minute homestead. I gave a lot of presentations last year about how you can do 5 to 15-minute projects throughout your day and your homestead becomes more productive. I say that having gone through one of the least productive times on this homestead in the last 3 months that it's ever had. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's because my whole house was ripped up and I was basically useless to him. Is that about right?
Yeah, and I was wrapped up in those too, so.
Yeah, so, I mean, I did get stuff processed. I did get things in the freezer. We probably ate homestead food 80% of the time, would you say?
Yeah.
But that other 20%, we were like, wow, we really don't like this.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. And every time I go to do something right now, I don't know where it is. Although it's better now. But the whole time it was like I'm basically operating out of a camper fridge, the fridge, and the backup fridge, and your fridge. So there were 4 refrigerators. And he'd be like, where's the steaks for tonight? I don't know. You have to go to 4 freaking fridges. Like that is not an efficient way to run your homestead, by the way. So we had a lot of that. But because the project's done now and things are getting put back together, it's been a really great time to purge stuff that is no longer useful. And how I'm doing that right now is in the kitchen. I haven't moved back into my kitchen really. Like I'm using my kitchen, but have I moved in? No. And so when I'm cooking something, I'll be like, you know what I was going to get rid of my roamer top, which is like a terracotta pot you can cook stuff in. Because why do I need that? I have a crock pot. I have all this stuff. And immediately needed a roamer top this week. And used it twice this week. And so it is allowed back in my kitchen. So every time I need something, I go on a hunt, one of 3 places for the actual thing. And then I did you guys just hear that MeWe notification say yes in all caps or no in all caps if you didn't? Because if you did, I'm going to close that tab so we don't have those throughout the show today. Anyway, I move it into the kitchen and find a place for it. I also have a friend coming tomorrow to help me set up new systems in my house. But okay, great. But I'm purging at the same time because this is like, I've been here for 17 years. I have 17 years worth of kitchen accumulation. My eating has changed. I have purged before, but I'm like being brutal about getting rid of some stuff. I've already sent like 8 bags to Goodwill.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I've been like selling furniture, like just all this crap that's in my way because it holds me back. So I thought this would be a good segment because we're also replanning things on the homestead. So this is like about taking small steps and doing less to give you more on your homestead, because a lot of what people do on the homestead is they overcommit, and it's like on the surface you can do all these things, and then one thing goes wrong and you end up upside down for the next 8 months. So Tactical had a really good way of thinking about that, and it was your VA analogy. So you have good days and bad days. Let's start there.
Yeah.
What does a good day look like for you?
I mean,
just mentally and health-wise.
A good day. I mean, I wouldn't say that I am a fully functional human being because I'm not, but like I've got my good days to where I can focus in on stuff and go from one thing to the other. And as long as I stay within my routine,
just keep talking,
then, I can have a really productive day. But then there are times where I don't. And like, I can't remember what happened. Something happened the other day and my whole morning routine was just gone. And it took me most of the day to get back on track. And so what we were talking about is, it's kind of the same thing on a homestead where you have to plan for your worst days, because I'm sure you're going to get into the story later, but I've had a busted thumb for a week, and yeah, it's my most important finger because it's the one that works the throttle on my four-wheeler. So, that was a major setback for me, just to be able to go over and see the sheep. Not to do anything, just to get over there.
And why do you need your thumb to get to the sheep?
Because it works the throttle on my four-wheeler, and I don't want to walk up that hill.
It's a really steep hill. Yeah, so I thought it was a great way, because like dealing with the V is really hard, because they say they want to help you and individual people there are helpful, but because it's such an overwhelming bureaucracy designed basically to make veterans frustrated and give up on trying to get services, as near as I can tell, they put barriers up. So every time you turn around, they're like, you have to do this thing to get the thing. And when you're having a good day, you're like, okay, here's that piece of paper. Okay, I've talked to that person. On a bad day, when he's completely unable to function, like managed to get out of bed was a bonus that day for him. Just having to walk to the next door to talk to somebody, he's in so much pain that trip hurts, which is why I think a lot of veterans end up with advocates by their side, because the advocate can walk there and talk to them, and they have permission to talk to them, and they can do all of those things to remove the barriers so that you finally get services. Homesteads are a lot like that, where you get up in the morning, have your coffee, you go check the sheep, make sure they're okay, you check the goats, make sure they're okay, you check the chickens, make sure they're okay, you let the ducks out, and dogs need to be handled. And that's like, those are the most important things in the morning from a no-kill list standpoint. And when we plan the homestead and what we're going to do every day, no-kill list is first, right?
Yes.
So that's a basic no-kill list. How much time does all that take?
Not long.
45 minutes, because you have to drive next door. Like, we had it up you could do that in 15 minutes here until the sheep came and they're like on another property, and that just takes more time.
Yeah, if you
So
exclude the sheep, it's 10 to 15 minutes for everything on property.
yeah, yep. So that's not a big time commitment, but if you're having a bad day and one thing goes wrong, like you already don't feel well, you know it's probably going to take you an hour and a half because you're dragging or you have the flu or something. And animals don't care if you have the flu. You still need to give them water and food. So you're dragging anyway, and then you get out there and, well, let's talk about livestock. I'm going to skip around a little bit. What happened with the sheep and the deer this week?
Yeah, so we just got off of a major tangent with the sheep about wanting to be anywhere but their paddock. And I moved them on Wednesday. It's like, cool, even with the busted hand, got that done, blah, blah, blah. Go back over there like an hour later to put them to bed, and they're all in a different paddock that they're not supposed to be in yet. And I'm like,
Well, why is that a big deal?
well, it's a big deal right now because we got coyotes about, and
The dogs are not with them when this happens.
yeah, the
And if
dogs,
they poop on that, then the rotation gets messed up.
yeah, so there's a cascading effect from that.
Also, if they poop on that's not a thing. They pooped on it.
Yeah. So I went up and checked, and it looked as though at some point, because this is the one stretch of fence that I didn't walk before I moved them up there. And I think a deer had knocked part of the fence down before I moved them into that paddock. And they got up to the top and were like, oh, cool, the fence is down. We'll go over here. So I put the fence back or got them back in, put the fence back up, and they didn't get back out again. So I'm assuming a deer took that part out.
Yeah. So then he gets back here. He's behind on letting the ducks out and everything else. This is how this cascades. He's starting to get hungry. Somebody's got to cook breakfast. That's usually me, but sometimes I'm not able to cook breakfast. And the way his brain works, like he had a checklist. He was doing it one thing at a time, and one thing at a time got messed up. And now he has no idea where he is because he has short-term memory issues.
Yeah.
So how do we handle that when that happens?
I mean, it takes me a little bit to kind of get myself to spin down, and then I have various things like I might just sit down and be like, okay, morning routine is this, 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 and this. It's like rabbits. It's really easy to walk over and check the rabbits and look and see either there's food or there's not food. If there's not food, put food in. Same with their water. So I will do anything like that I can. There are things like, some of the meds and supplements that I take. It's not like I can just look and see whether I took them this morning or not.
You could if you had a day of the week thing like I do.
Not if it's liquid.
Oh, check box.
I have not figured that out yet.
Okay. So you see how this goes. Like he has to basically go through his whole checklist again if he gets off of his plan, because that system is how he tracks it. Now, not everybody requires that level of intervention. It's because he does have a disability. We don't really talk about that much because who wants to talk about that publicly? But there you go. It's all out there on the internet now. You're welcome.
Oh.
And that means that he has to go back and deal with that if he's going to make sure it's done. Before we started doing the homestead, he didn't have a method to do that, but he's worked really hard over the last 3 years to set up a system where he can go back and see what happened. Before, he just was like probably a general feeling of unsettled and no idea if he did anything all the time. Was that about how it was?
Yeah.
Okay. And then mad when he realized he hadn't. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's that. I tell that story because while that might not be the challenge you have, you're going to have different challenges come out throughout the year. And if you have planned your homestead to the minute every day, There is no flexibility. So definitely when planning, think about, how is this going to be when my whole family has COVID? How's this going to be when there's a death in the family and one of us has to leave? How's this going to be if somebody wrecks their thumb with a thorn and it gets infected and they have to go to the ER? Like, what does that look like? And we'll talk to you about some of those things, because that last example happened.
Yep.
And I saw somebody else has a busted thumb from dry skin. Look into calendula for that. That can help. And then if it's not infected, a comfrey salve is really good. Okay, who forgot to hit the like button? That's right, Rachel. Hit the like and share if you think this is valuable information. The other thing that I have really been working on over the last year, I call the 15-minute homestead, because I realized I was talking to Amani, from Amani and River, who do the hempcrete stuff, who I hope will come to our spring workshop and do a hempcrete build. Hopefully I find out about that in the next week. She and I talked about dinner once when we were just getting ready. I'm like, okay, I got to go home and do this because tomorrow we won't have dinner if I don't do that. And she said, you know how many people don't know that that's how you do that, Nicole? Like, we should talk about how we organize our days to get the things done that need to be done. And morning dinner means we will eat successfully for me. So what I do in the morning, most mornings, not all mornings, but what I do in the morning, most mornings, is I look at, what are we having for dinner? And I know some people do this a week in advance. It's just how I do it. And I make sure everything is in place that I need for it to be ready by about 6 o'clock. And I used to make fun of my grandparents for doing this. They'd be like, what do you want for dinner? And I'd be like, why are they talking about dinner over breakfast? And then now I'm like, okay, so typically the things I made fun of my grandparents about are things I now do. And that's one of them, is what's for dinner. Now, if I ask him for, what do you want for dinner tonight, Tactical?
I have no idea.
Yeah, that's the answer I get every single time. There's never been a time he said, I really want, steak.
Yeah. And for me, it's right now, my brain is right here and leaving here to go to Cookville. So dinner for me is that may as well be next month sometime. So far away, not even worth thinking about.
Right. But if you think about it in the morning, she probably just wants that. Right? Oh, she wants to go outside. You know what? We can hear you talk while you walk, just so you know.
Come here.
But if you think about dinner now, then your chances of success of having it is great. And what I've been doing all week is we've been in hyper production mode, which means I've been working most minutes of the day during the day, which means I didn't have a lot of time to do chefy stuff at night because I was still working. And so at the beginning of the day, I think, okay, we want a pot roast by 1 o'clock for dinner lunch, Linner. And that's why the Romer Top came out. You can have a really tender roast within 3 hours from your oven to 4 hours, depending on the size of the roast, which is faster than the crock pot. And I don't have a pressure cooker right now. And so I would get that all set up in the morning, and it would take me about 15 minutes to think about it, get the roast out of the fridge, get it all prepared, get it in there, and start the process of cooking. And then that was going to be out by 1 o'clock. And then for dinner at 6, we were having more breakfast food, because I've been trying to have our bigger meal in the middle of the day right now. That works about half the time. And if I know it's just going to be a bigger dinner at night, then I can put the roast in the crock pot, or I can be like, oh, we're having steaks, so at 3 p.m. I need to start the steaks in the sous vide, or I'm not going to start them in the sous vide. We're just going to broil them tonight. So that means that if I want it out at 6, I need to put that in the oven at 5:30 and start doing the side dishes so everything's ready to go by about 6. Knowing that in advance is key. At the same time in the morning, what I do is I ask myself, what are we having over the next few days? And I pull stuff out of the freezer to defrost in the fridge. So we've got lamb stew happening probably tomorrow at this phase. It was originally going to happen today, but we're going to have chicken today because that's going to actually be out in time. I needed to have started the lamb stew already. So chicken's happening tomorrow. This is one of those mornings where, because of my morning schedule, I didn't do the think thing early in the morning. I'm going to do it right after this show. So So chicken will cook for about, an hour to 2 hours, depending on how I do it. Plenty of time to do that. It's defrosted in the fridge, and then I'll just do whatever green beans or whatever side dishes we have. If I wait until 4 o'clock to think about that, we are eating at midnight. So that's my Homestead 101 planning tip is especially if you're working from home on your homestead, think about dinner first thing in the morning. If you are working and then coming home to your homestead, decide what's for dinner at least the latest the day before and know what you're doing to get it done. Like have that all in place.
Yeah. That's also why I don't cook dinners, because we would eat at like 9, 10 o'clock most nights.
Yeah, every time you cook, that's about when we eat. Okay, I have a tip on here for this section, but I think that was a good enough tip, and we'll save that one for next week.
Good plan.
All right. What's midwinter like on the homestead?
This winter, not that bad.
Letty says we've started monthly meal planning, and it definitely helps with the budget as well as making sure. Yep. It does. When you know what you're going to eat, you're less likely to eat out. Also, I'm not allowed to eat out this month.
Okay.
Do you care?
No, I'm perfectly fine with that decision.
Everything's harder in the winter.
Yes.
Or in the extreme sun, and that goes for right now. Like I usually get up and take my dogs outside, and we go from one place to another. There's usually a word that starts with W. You say, but we're not going to say that because I'm being stared at, hopefully, by my smallest dog who really wants to do that. But when it's like 24 degrees outside, I don't always do that first thing in the morning. And today it was pretty cold this morning, so we're doing it right after this.
Yeah.
But so time of day on things change and all sorts of stuff. Also, things freeze and have to be unfrozen. Like the chicken water is probably frozen right now.
So is the rabbit water.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. So that's got to be handled. What we do is we have ways of keeping water from freezing, and we set those up, and sometimes they fail. Yep. And then you just have to bring fresh water. Like that's the solution. And then you also defrost the watering systems that, for whatever reason didn't work. Is it just not plugged in at the rabbits?
No, the water level dropped.
Oh, water level dropped too low. Yeah. So he keeps the rabbit water from freezing by rotation and not by temperature control. So that's how that works. And welcome to your first live, Mandy. Good to see you on. So that's kind of what midwinter is like. If you are in a northern climate, it's a lot harder, and hopefully you have indoor systems. But the sheep this year are doing really well. But their water was frozen this morning, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you just make an ice cube and then refill it?
I need to haul more water over for them.
Okay. So, yeah, it's all about water today.
Yes.
Yes. Our next segment is featured forage. This is what we're finding just out and about. And one of the things that I just found this week is that the stinging nettle is starting to grow. Why do you wince about that?
I end up with the stinging part of the stinging nettle.
Oh, do you know what else? Stinging nettle's good for some of your ailments.
I realize that, but I always find it because all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, why does the side of my leg feel like it's on fire?
Oh, here's stinging nettle. Let's harvest that for Nicole to dry and make into tea or make into stinging nettle soup. That's what your next thought should be. That's why you should have gloves with you at all times. Or if you actually pick the stem of the stinging nettle the right way, because the little pokey things only go one direction, you won't get stung.
Yeah, well, I always find it because it's like I'm doing something else, and then I become aware that there is stinging nettle there because my arm or my leg starts to burn.
Mm-hmm. And it lasts for how long?
A while.
45 minutes.
Which seems like forever when the entire side of your leg is on fire.
The cool thing about stinging nettle is that it's got a decent amount of vitamin D in it. So this time of year, having it come back is actually pretty cool for teas and soups. So nature does provide, what we need. Mushrooms are another thing you should be eating at this time of year. And I have not found any mushrooms we could eat and I've been looking for about 2 weeks. I usually look for longer, but I just like getting into the woods was not happening for me with my house ripped up. So I've been looking for oyster mushrooms and different things in the woods. Nothing. There's just lichen out there right now. I did see one giant puffball mushroom on my neighbor's tree, but I didn't think she'd take kindly to me pulling up with a ladder in the back of your truck and like getting that puffball. And puffballs don't usually grow in trees. I don't know why it's up there, but there we go. And I do plan to keep looking for mushrooms. We're getting rain Saturday, so Sunday's probably a really good mushroom day. David Siegler says, do you know there's a hole cut in your wall?
Yes.
Yes, we do know that. It's been there the whole time.
I put it there.
Tactical cut the hole in my wall. Should we tell them why it's there, or should we just let that be a podcast mystery for a while?
That's up to you.
Also, one of these episodes soon, we'll tell you why there's a hole cut in the wall. Maybe the hole will be closed eventually. But would you, I mean, look at what's in there.
Yes.
Look what's in there. Like, would you close that hole, David, if it was in your wall? I don't think so. But yeah, I am happy to take guesses on why those valves are right there in my wall in my living room, looking like a hole. What he didn't comment on was my vanilla bourbon. I guess he's just okay with morning drinking, which I'm not doing, but it looks like I'm doing it. So I can be an alcohol consumer on the internet in the morning, day drinking. So then the root vegetables are also there. This is a great time to dig Jerusalem artichokes. And I was going to put Jerusalem artichokes in our last roast, but my 15-minute breakfast dinner cooking jab thing didn't work for me to also go outside and forage. So I need to forage those on one of my walks and then just do it. Just put a picture frame around it. Yeah, that's almost the plan of what's going to happen there. Pretty sure we're getting a door too.
Now I want to put a picture of the valves.
You know what we should do is put a picture frame and then take one of Mrs. Cruz's paintings and use that for the wood for the door. That would be kind of cool, and it would like honor the former look and feel of this house.
Could.
That was created with much love and attention. Deck the walls with exposed valves. La 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 la. Text didn't rhyme. Thank you, Pack Rat. I do burst into song.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does it annoy you? Sometimes. So his silence is pregnant. Are you pregnant?
Huh?
That was a pregnant silence right there about me bursting into song. Anyway, Jerusalem artichokes are definitely on the list this week, and for me to find. There's no illusion in my mind that I'm going to get out there today and do it. Next segment is livestock. This is where we talk about all the critters on the homestead. And we didn't have eggs for like 6 weeks. And I went out of town for a week. Mind you, we have 4 actual hens. So you don't get a lot of eggs with 4 hens. I went out of town for a week, came back, didn't look in the chicken coop, asked him if he'd seen eggs. He said no. And this week I went down and found a dozen eggs. And then I went down and found 8 more eggs in another spot in the pasture where the chickens are. And we're getting eggs again to the tune of 2 to 4 eggs a day. How's that been?
Nice.
Yeah, because we can eat eggs again. Now, chicken eggs are not as good as duck eggs, but I expect the duck eggs are going to start coming back on too. And that means that we need to think about what the wood chips are like in the duck coop, which I happen to know that we have not been putting enough wood chips in there. And I think like what's been my toolbox fallacy on this, and for those of you who don't know what a toolbox fallacy is, it's like I need to do this before I can do that. When you can figure out a way around it, it's like a justification for stopping. Has been that I keep intending to order a dump truck full of sawdust to use for bedding, to use for composting outhouses, but we got to put it somewhere. And every time I ask him, where can we put it? He says, I don't know. And that's because there is nowhere to put it. So I just admitted that that is the reality, and we're not going to build a barn for the sawdust for the thing and also have enough for the duck coop. So what's on our agenda is to pay money to order a pallet of wood shavings from Tractor Supply to be delivered here, so that we just have them and they are protected from the elements. Because our core problem here is we don't have a barn.
Yeah.
And a barn would be awesome. There is a barn nearby, but it's somebody else's barn, and I'm not putting a truckload of sawdust in their barn. Like, we could put it in that little side thing, but getting it there would be a pain in the neck.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's not our barn. Like, what if they decide they want their pasture back to raise cattle and we got to move the sheep out of there? Like,
Yeah.
it would take us a month probably to get that done, but also like, and then we also have sawdust in the barn. I don't think that's a good, I mean, I don't think he'd be mad if I put sawdust in there, but it's just like, if he needs it, then it doesn't work at all. No, I don't see any other guesses about why there's valves in my wall. Just saying. So that's kind of cool. And then we have a predator in the woods, and the way we know this, so when you're raising livestock, of course, you want to protect it from predators. And what kind of predator do you think it is?
I know we've got coyotes.
Yeah, how do you know?
I can hear them.
He can hear them. Our dogs go like our house dogs, whenever they go outside, go run around and bark in the woods near the house. Very upset about coyotes. Chestnut in particular hates them. Like, I've seen her lose her mind just because she hears coyotes go.
Yeah.
Well, I, of course, take the dogs on a stroll. Yeah, you know the word stroll, but you know it's not, that means we're not serious yet. I take them on a stroll, and I see coyotes scat. Coyotes are eating persimmons at this time of year, just FYI. And so I can tell by the size of the turd if it's a big coyote or a little coyote, but they're definitely all around us this year, a lot more than usual. And I don't know if it's because they're attracted to the sheep, if they're like scouting out the ducks, because the ducks have been going off property. And I haven't even done a head count on ducks, so I don't know. We have so many ducks, like I don't necessarily know the number.
It's hard to get a head count on them.
Yeah, we lost 2 ducks last month, but just they were dead in the pond, and we don't know why.
They were sick.
Okay, we lost. They were probably the old ducks. I did notice the original flock has gone down in number.
Yeah.
So coyotes are around, but I also know from our community Facebook page that there is a very large bobcat nearby. So all of that means we're thinking about like how to protect predators. What I've started doing is strolling the dogs through the woods around the house, not just my usual road walk, so that they're out there making dog smells.
Yeah.
What have you done?
A lot of times at night, when I start hearing the coyotes go off, I key up to the neighbors and say gunshots, coyotes, and I'll just pop 2 rounds into the ground, and that usually a couple of nights of that, and the coyotes will kind of move over into, the next holler or whatever. But this year, that has not been the case. There's up that direction. If you go up the wash, somewhere up there, they've got pups, because you can hear them. One of them will start up, and all up in that one area, you just hear the whole kitten caboodle start going off.
That's where I've been walking the dogs.
Yeah.
Also, there are no mushrooms up there. So we're doing the best we can. The way that the coyotes were handled last time it was like this is my neighbor's German Shepherds got out and killed them. And, it's tempting to let our livestock gardening dogs do that, but then they will learn to leave the pasture. And so that's the wrong lesson to teach. So
yeah, there's a number of reasons not.
Yeah, we're not going to do that. And our dogs, like Chestnut hates them, but she doesn't go after them. She just barks at them meanly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see how this goes. Hopefully, making it seem like a not safe place will push them somewhere else. But if not, we might have to start hunting coyotes.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a lot less worried about the sheep just because there are 2 dogs over there that will literally tear a coyote in half. I know this because they've done it before
Yeah.
when they were half the size they are now.
Yeah, they're huge.
So as long as the sheep stay in the paddock, I'm not really that worried about the sheep. It's coyotes getting too close over here. And I think my biggest concern with that is my dog goes out at night and she's by herself and she gets ganged up on by multiple coyotes. I think that's probably my biggest concern over here.
Yeah, or if they pick off ducks during the day in the creek.
I would say that's not as much of a concern to me, but we did have that one walking down the road.
Yeah, well, and the ducks have been going down as far as Pat's house in the creek.
Yeah, that's an issue too.
So some duck jail probably has to happen. Our next segment is homegrown cooking. This is where we talk about what we're cooking on the homestead. And if I'll probably talk more about it. Well, I talked about it. No, I'm talking about it on Monday's show. But so Dawn Gorham from Gorham Homesteads put out a challenge for us to do a pantry challenge in January. And the last time we did a pantry challenge was a July time when I was getting lots off the garden, which was like setting ourselves up for success. But we agreed to go for it. And the rules are that you can't go to the store to get anything to eat. Like you have to eat from what's in your pantry or what you're growing on your homestead. You can barter with other people for stuff from their homestead, and you can still pick up your farm subscription. So I have a weekly milk subscription. I can get that. But other than that, no going to the store. And leading up to it, she was like, hey, go to the store to do your last restock because the pantry challenge starts. And I was like, I'm going to do it without going to the store and just see what's here and see what week spaces I have, just out of curiosity. What am I actually sourcing at the store, on the regular that maybe I don't need to? Maybe there's a way I can get it from the homestead. You're also not allowed to go out and eat at restaurants. Exception, I'm going to be on the road for 3 days this month. And during that time, I can go to a grocery store. I can go out to eat. But other than that, it is all eating from here. So, of course, we went into this week, and I will confess that I bought onions before we started the challenge because I already know we don't have enough onions growing here. I already know that's a weak spot, and I really like onions. So I bought, a couple of small bags of onions for the month. So I already broke my own rule of not restocking.
Mm.
It is the one thing I did, and I'm not going to lie about it. So that's all I've done. Backups for not having onions are that wild garlic's going to come up in another month. I have green onions in the aquaponics system.
Same.
I don't have a lot of dried onions this year because my onion crop failed. So, and I usually source a 55-pound bag of onions for the winter, which sees us through the winter and through the spring workshop. But I didn't do that this year because the house was ripped up. That's actually why I gave myself that pass, because I usually have it stocked, but I don't have it stocked because I didn't have anywhere to put it. But so far it's going well, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
You know what we're going to run out of?
Cheese.
Melty cheese. I have Parmesan till the end of time, but like cheddar or mozzarella or any of that, we're going to run out of. I may actually turn one of my half gallons of milk into mozzarella this month just to have more melty cheese. But that's another weak spot. Like I didn't make cheddar cheese this year either because of the same, like the house was in the way of a lot of things I usually do productivity wise. So if you want to do the pantry challenge and you're just hearing about it now, I would say start it. It's Friday now. Start it next Friday so that those of you who hear this 3 days later are ready to go, and then go a full month from that date, whatever date that is, because I don't know what date the month next Friday is, 7 days from now. And see if you can go a month on your pantry without going to the store and what that looks like. And we can talk about what you substitute for what. What I know is also going to be a challenge is I will not have heavy whipping cream because I've been buying that at the store because my farmer connection doesn't make heavy whipping cream to sell, or I would buy it. And I have milk, and that I strain the cream off of that, and I'll totally show you guys how I do that eventually this month. But that only supplies heavy whipping cream for like 2 to 4 days, depending on how much coffee I'm having. So, uh, so my coffee's not going to have the same heavy whipping cream quotient that it usually does, and that's fine. That's what like I have freeze dried milk for that reason. I get a half gallon of milk that I can just steam and put with my coffee, and it's not the same as heavy whipping cream, but it's good. So that all works. We did a bunch of beef roasts in the Romer top, and we had 3 roasts this week. 2 in the Romer top and 1 in the crock pot.
I was fine with that.
Yeah, and they were all spiced different.
Yeah, and the ones in the Romer top were just good.
Yeah, the Romer top, why is it better?
I don't know.
Like what about it is better?
I don't know, it's just the flavor and the it's not dry and it shreds like, pulled pork.
Yeah, it's a different experience, and it's weird because it's just a terracotta pot in the oven with vegetables and meat. And I did add sauerkraut to it because I have sauerkraut to use up.
Yeah.
And that added an interesting flavor to it. I wonder if the acid from that impacts it, because I didn't put sauerkraut in the one in the crock pot, but I put morels in that one.
Yeah.
And that was good
those
too.
Are good.
Yeah. Yeah, the mouthfeel is just different on the Romer top. So
she goes digging in there for a morel mushroom, and I get a bowl of it, and it's like there's 5 of them in there.
Yeah. I had a lot of morels last night with the leftovers.
Yeah.
And then it's wood stove cooking season. I did not do wood stove cooking this week, but instead of using the crock pot, the cool thing that happens when you're using your wood stove is I can put a Dutch oven on the wood stove and slow cook something like a roast. Now, it will take more hours than the Romer top, but it takes about the same amount of time. It takes 8 to 10 hours to do a roast on my wood stove. So that's another thing we'll start doing, because I figure, like, from an energy efficiency standpoint, cook on the wood stove, and it makes better better use of my energy. I'm not using, I mean, I know it's not a lot of power to cook with the crock pot, but it's just one less thing that I'm plugging into the wall, which is kind of cool. Mona says, we had a Romer top goose on Christmas. So good. Oh, I'll have to try that with a duck. We have some ducks we need to process, and that would probably be really good with the ducks. And then with all the cows coming in, I made a lot of beef bone broth. So we've been having bone broth in the afternoon or morning.
Yeah.
Do you like that?
Right now, yes.
Why?
Because it's cold.
Yeah, so it's like a hot thing. It kind of takes the edge off when you're hungry. And the collagen's really good for people who do stuff to their thumbs.
That too.
Yeah. So that's done. And I got it all canned. I did not. So I made the beef bone broth in December, had to leave town because it was time to leave town. I didn't have it all canned. And then Tracy came over from next door, and she put it in Ziplocs in the freezer for me, because I literally just ran out of town. I'm like, could you please do this? So I canned the last 8 jars when I got back, which led to the picture on the internet of me not knowing what year it was. So half the jars from that say 23 and half say 24. And that's just because I forgot what year I was in when I was labeling the jars. But I usually put year, like 24, and then what's in the jar on the lid when I can something. And those are just all over the board right now.
Yeah.
That's all you have to say?
Yeah.
Okay. Next segment is grow, which is where we talk about what we're growing on the homestead. Before I go into this, though, I want to say we've got our first guess for why there's a hole in my wall. Pack Rat says, I'm guessing the PEX is recent plumbing work. Was it a fix put in where the front cannot be messed with, like tile surface in the kitchen for some reason that cannot be worked on? That's a good guess. That's not it, but that's a good guess. Yeah. Keep the guesses coming, guys. Eventually we'll tell you what that's all about. So what do you got going on in your indoor grow operation? I got goose egg. I don't even have sprouts. Maybe I could start sprouts this week.
That wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah, that would be good, because our last salad is tonight for the month, unless I grow salad.
I I don't have anything going in my indoor system. What I do have is an indoor aquaponic system with no fish and no plants. And it's just still there because it's just still there. But what I did do was it was after our first freeze, but before we really got into winter, I took some cuttings off of the different pepper plants that I had in the outdoor hydro system and shoved them into pipes in that indoor AP, expecting them to just die and start to rot. And I was like, in a month or two, I'll probably get around to yanking them out of there. But all three of them actually rooted. And this week, with a busted hand, and I couldn't really do much else, I was like, okay, pull those out of there, trim the roots up a little bit. And I had some small-ish pots that already had potting soil and failed willow cuttings in them. So I yanked the stems of the willows
Ooh, you had
out.
rooting agent in the soil from the failed willow cuttings.
Yeah,
Do you know that? Yeah, so willow, guys, if you have rooting agent, soak willow in water and water with that, and that is a rooting enzyme.
Huh.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just took those 3 pots and opened the soil up in there and shoved the peppers in there. So thus far, all 3 of them have survived the transplant into actual dirt. So as long as I remember to water them, and then once we start to warm up a little bit, get them into a bigger pot or ground, I think I'm going to have a jump start on peppers for next season.
Awesome. I wish one of those was Jack's.
There is a possibility that one of them is, but I don't know.
I don't think so. I'll start Jack's from seed again. I have Jack's seeds,
Yeah.
but I had crap luck with Jack's last year.
There was one that's a jalapeno, but I don't know if it was Jack's jalapeno or if it was my Gitmo jalapeno.
Right. It just depends on if you got it from me or you, because I only did Jack's last
I
year.
don't know. Well,
Yeah.
I had Jack's seeds too.
Okay. Yeah. So my Jack's seeds gave me enough peppers for me to get more Jack's seeds last year. And I think it's because I had them only in my aquaponics system, and I let the other plants get so big they were shaded. And they just didn't. It was like totally my fault. It wasn't like the Jack seeds' fault or the season. It was like, it wasn't a great pepper year, but I also didn't let the peppers have sun, and that's kind of important to making peppers. Yeah. Have I planted the garlic yet?
Nope.
Nope. Does that mean we're not going to have garlic next year?
I mean,
idea. This year, which is next year. We're still going to have garlic, guys, but I really need to get it in the ground. And the cool thing is that we have some great mulch queued up for that now. So the bed is ready. I still haven't put it in. It will take me half an hour to get it planted. I'm just not going to do it when the ground is frozen. So hopefully it unfreezes over this weekend, and if I can get it in before the rain tomorrow, though, that would be better.
Yeah.
So if we get above freezing today, I'm probably going to plop them in. I have them on my counter ready to go. Like, I have chosen half of what's going in the ground.
Yeah.
And that was my other toolbox fallacy. Like, the garlic kept not going in, A, because I wanted all my time on having my house again, but B, because I had to get the garlic, take the garlic out from where it was hidden because everything was ripped up. Like, there was a lot of cascading reasons why I was telling myself I couldn't do it. And finally, this week, I was like, pull the garlic out and put it on your kitchen counter, and then you will do it. And so I've chosen the elephant garlic. Now I'm going to choose the rest of the garlic. And we'll see if next week I'm still reporting the garlic's not in. Our next segment is Holler, Neighbors, and Community. How thankful are you for Nighthawk this week? And Steve?
Very.
Why?
Because projects and busted hands.
What happened to your thumb?
I got into a fight with a briar vine.
And what's that mean? That's a very short answer. does not give them context.
I got on a tangent about clearing a paddock that has been literally a thorn in my side since we got into this pasture. And I was trying to get at a tree that was about as big around as a baseball, and there was a briar vine about as big around as a quarter that was bent over. So I took the pruning shears to cut that, and it literally whipped up into my hand and embedded a thorn right in the knuckle of my thumb. And of course, I was pissed because it hurt. And so I stopped, pulled my glove off, took the box blade out, dug the thorn out, put my gloves back on, cut the thing all the way down to the ground, cut the tree down, and moved on. And about 3 or 4 hours later, my hand actually started swelling up from here all the way down to here. I was like, well, that's weird. Must be because it's in the knuckle. It is like, I'm constantly torn up by briar vines. Like half the time I'm coming back over here and sitting here for dinner and digging, 15 briar vine thorns out of my hands. I don't think much about it from like getting an infection standpoint, but I don't know what it was with this one, but sure enough, it got an infection, and by the next morning, I really could not move my thumb without extreme pain. So,
and when he says extreme pain, like a broken rib for him is an 8 on the scale of 1 to 10. And he was telling me his finger was 6 to 7. So it was bordering on broken rib.
Yeah.
That's not a good sign. That's why I was like, hey, let's suddenly go to the ER when we're supposed to be doing real thing. So what did they do?
Oh, they, were nice enough to finally send somebody over who looked at it and said, well, it doesn't.
No, what did the neighbors do?
Oh.
So Nighthawk and Steve like totally helped us out. The lounge chair. Nighthawk and Steve finally helped us out, or helped us out because we were at the ER. And when you go to the ER on New Year's Day, you have all the New Year's Day stuff there. So we won't go into that's a totally different podcast episode.
Way better than people of Walmart.
Yeah. So what did they do for us while we were gone?
Basically put everybody to bed and moved firewood and whatever else they did. I don't even remember.
Yeah, so they brought in firewood because we bring in firewood every day, kept the fire going. They, over the next 2 days, troubleshot and fixed a drainage problem at base camp where we ended up making the drain bigger for the washing machine. And Nighthawk went and brought water to the sheep at the very tippy top of the hill where they are. So you didn't have to go up there and I didn't have to go up there because we didn't know when we were going to get back.
Yeah.
So they did all of that for us and super thankful because it was great to come home and then not have to face moving firewood when it's cold out and after dark. Yeah. And we did get home just before dark, but it was just before dark. Because we were there, went to Lowe's and got the parts for the project at base camp. Yeah. But we had to get a drill bit to drill a bigger hole through the concrete and then run a different drain.
Yeah.
So that was super fun. And that's where, when you're on a homestead by yourself without community, it's really hard when something like that happens. And so to the degree that you can develop more relationships with homesteaders near you, near enough to come help if that happens, the better it is. Like I've got people who are 25 minutes away who in an emergency can come over. And in an emergency at their house, I can come over. The only time I've been called on to do it was when our friend was in a motorcycle accident and we went over and fed his dogs. And thankfully we're not bitten that day. But like he was in an accident. His wife was gone. Nobody was home. It was going to be dogs inside for 24 to 48 hours. And she was like, well, they won't kill each other. They won't die. They'll just poop in the house and I'll have to clean it up. And I was like, what can I do to help? Do you need something with your animals? She was like, actually, the food for the dogs is here and they probably need to pee and poop outside. So that was an interesting. There is nothing like being in the hallway of somebody else's house and watching a full-size German Shepherd come stalking towards you like they're going to bite you and then change their mind at the last minute.
Yeah.
And then go hide under the bed because it thought it did something wrong. And I was like, well, you do know me. Like, I wasn't a total stranger, but those dogs were trained to bite. So that was I said its name.
No, I'd throw it for a loop.
Yeah, I think that threw it for a loop. But the other thing that the Holler neighbors did this week is so what I do to deal with leaves is I leave them on the ground. But what the Eversoles do is they actually clean up the leaves from their yard. Shocking. And he bought a leaf mulcher this year and he mulched them all and put them all in bags and got them off the property. You want to know where those bags ended up? So we have a bunch of leaf mulch for the garden. I'm super excited about it. The other reason I am thankful for Nighthawk is I got a message 2 days ago when Tactical went to let Chestnut out to pee. And the message was, your stovepipe.
Oh, yeah. I went to let the dog out.
What did you tell me? Just tell me.
I'm trying to remember.
He basically said, my fire alarm's going off. My wood stove's really hot. Click. He didn't tell me, come help. And I was like, I assume that me. And I had to listen to it twice to understand what was going on. And I queued up on Zello. So Zello is a tool we use a lot in the Holler. To Nighthawk, and I said, meet me at the cabin with your fire extinguisher. And I said nothing else. And then I got my fire extinguisher and walked down there. I had queued up by then and realized nothing was on fire. He just that he knew of, but just that his stove was really hot. His damper had come open, and whatever piece of firewood he had in there was super hot. And his chimney's not that. His stovepipe isn't that great. It's like the kind you get at Lowe's, and they're not as good as the kind you get at the fireplace store. So it had gotten, his stovepipe was about 800 degrees, which is okay. Like they are rated for 1,000 degrees, but it was climbing. And he had a cast iron skillet on there, presumably seasoning with some grease in it that was smoking, which set off his fire alarm, which is good because that made him know he needed to go down. Yeah, there was a problem.
And when I realized at first, I thought it was a freezer. And I was like, no, it's coming from the wrong direction. I realized it's coming from the cabin. So I ran down there, opened the door, and the house is full of smoke, which I've had this stove get really hot before because of the dampener coming open, but it never put out smoke like that. So I was like, there's something else going on. I realized quickly that it was that cast iron skillet. So I yanked that off, slammed the dampener closed, and then shoved a wet rag in the air intake to try to starve it for oxygen. And then it was basically just sit there and wait. But what she said about it not being that great of a pipe, like this was the straw that broke the camel's back with this one because it is flimsy.
We have a planning meeting every week about what we're going to do this week, and sometimes we actually do it, but most of the time something comes up. But it does help us track priorities over time.
Yeah.
And today we were scheduled to go to Smithville, talk to the people who fixed his truck about how it's not fixed. Because I think there has been miscommunication about what they're fixing, and he has a transmission fluid leak that's never not been fixed or never been fixed. Like they try to fix it.
Fixed repeatedly.
Yeah, it hasn't successfully been fixed. And we need to talk to them so they know it's still leaking. I think what happened last time is they thought they were looking for transmission not shifting, not transmission leaking, but they should have totally seen the leak.
Yeah.
So we need to talk to them about that. I have a camper that needs to be registered with the county, and then you have a voucher you need to bring into the property tax people. And all of that's kind of in the same place.
Yeah.
So I was like, we need to get this stuff done. None of us like doing paperwork. It's like my least favorite thing in the whole entire world is paperwork. And we're just going to go to Smithville, get it done, and be over it. And that is our plan. And it was supposed to be yesterday that we would go, but we were also supposed to go to my duplex and install the dryer for the new tenant. And that was supposed to happen Tuesday, I thought, but then I was wrong because I did my numbers wrong for the month, and it was Wednesday, and I couldn't do it Wednesday because we were live on Wednesday. So then we ended up doing that yesterday, which moved the day to go to the county to Friday. So we're going to Smithville today.
No,
Why not?
I'm going to Cookville to
Why?
buy a new stovepipe.
You're going to buy a new stovepipe. So they make these really cool stovepipes that are thicker than the ones you get at Lowe's or Home Depot, and they telescope.
Yeah.
Which is what I have here. And the install for those is better, and they're more durable, and I feel safer with that thicker metal.
Yeah.
And it's always been the intention to get one in his house. So we decided now's the time. And this morning I'm like, so we're going to Smithville. I didn't know he was going to get a new stovepipe today. And he's like, well, we got to talk about that because I got to go to Cookville. And I'm like, why do you got to go to Cookville? And he's like, stovepipe. And at this point, he thinks he's going to be having a debate with me about how we're doing both. And he doesn't want to do both. He wants to do one. And I'm thinking, like, I can't even go to Smithville until after I have a call with somebody at 12, and then I have show production to do, and then it'll be 2:00 by the time we leave. And somewhere in there, we should probably eat lunch. I don't even, I mean, I think that'd be a good idea. And I was like, yeah, there's only way one of these things happens. And here's where we go back to the no-kill list. Are we going to die if you don't talk to the car people, we don't register my camper, or you don't put that voucher in?
Nope.
Are we going to potentially die if you don't have heat? You're not going to die, but, that's more important. So
Yeah,
he gets to go to Cookville.
I woke up to the house being freezing this morning
Yeah.
because issues.
Yeah.
But so I went to pull the chimney apart and like metal just started cracking. I was like,
it's not safe to use.
This one's toast. So I cranked up an electric heater, and the last time I walked into the house, it was still 62.
Yeah. So it's cold. I mean, he could sleep on my couch if he needs to, but
yeah,
he doesn't want to do that. It's also
I have done that before.
Yeah, it's a new couch. You're not going to like this one.
No.
There's a mattress though, or a blow-up bed if you need it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he's going to go hopefully get his stovepipe, or at least get it ordered, and we are not using that wood stove until that's replaced.
It's not optional at this point.
Well, I mean, we could buy another Lowe's one and put it in, but I'd rather not. Yeah, those are crappy. So that's how we make decisions around here. It's like we have the best of intentions, but things get rolled. So next week I get to go to Smithville and do paperwork, Letty, my favorite thing. Next segment is finances. This is where we talk about the money of the homestead. Have I become militant about money?
Yep.
What do you mean by yep?
Well, you got some new system.
I have some new system. There's a new system this year, and it's not a crazy system. It's if you're gonna say something, we're gonna hear it when you walk outside.
Yeah, I'm just seeing what the dog is.
My dog's barking her butt off, but I think she's just barking at coyotes. It sounds like a non-serious bark.
You will probably hear me call her to come back inside.
Okay. So the way the farm's finances are is it's kind of all through one company that does multiple things. And this year, I'm pretty sure we're going to end up with some multiple corporations after I work with Matthew Sursley from Agris Tax Advice to assess if we are structured the best way. I don't know for sure, but I suspect that's going to happen. And I do know from a tracking standpoint, which, as Letty points out, I hate doing it. The things that have made my life easiest in the last 5 years from a financial tracking standpoint is each rental property has its own bank account, and all of the expenses go through that account. And then when I do tax prep, it's all in one place. It shows division of, this from that for the IRS very clearly. And all my companies are handled that way. So all of my companies, it's like I have a billion of them. But I have Nicole Sauce Industries, which is this plus any rentals that I own. We have another one for rentals that Tactical and I manage, or one rental. And then I have another rental partnership. Basically, it's not a partnership by legal definition, but I have a rental with another person. So those are all separate. And each of those have their own account. Well, Nicole Sauce Industries has the podcast, it has webinars, it has Self-Reliance Festival, it has Holler Roast Coffee, and it has rentals, which is a lot of things. And it made sense when it was small to have that all in one thing. But as we grow, I'm still tracking, like I track Holler Roast expenses as a business unit in that, so that I know that it's making money or whatever. But they're all through the same bank account. I decided to get militant about that this year and actually separate all the business units out so that they're different. But when I need to buy something with a credit card, which I do use credit cards and then pay them off every month in these businesses, that means there's got to be a different credit card for each one. Okay. And so yesterday we were at Home Depot for the duplex to put in the dryer, because we had to dry some stuff. And the reason we put in the dryer is I wanted to make sure it was installed right, to reduce any fire hazard for that. And I also want to make sure the washer is installed without leaks so we don't ruin the floor. And it's just a thing that we've started doing. We had to buy stuff, and I wanted that tracked for that rental property separately from the farm work, the homestead stuff. But he needed to buy stuff for the homestead, and we're at the hardware store anyway. So he walks up to the check stand, and usually we would just put that all on one order and I would track it later. Well, I realized over the break that the easiest tax prep I do every year is my Nashville duplex, because it's all on one thing. It's all like one bank account. Rarely do we ever need to buy things with credit cards on it. I reimburse those with a form because I just put it on my personal card and do a reimbursement for that one, because that happens like once. Well, I was like, what if I dedicate one card that I have? Because I have multiple credit cards that I don't use, because you want backup systems, right? So why don't I just put that all on one of my cards if I need to charge something at Home Depot? And then everything on that card is essentially a business expense, and that card can be paid by the checking account, and then I have everything itemized. So I did that. And then while we were there, like over the break, I'm like, oh, and when we do homestead expenses, which he and I have kind of been putting on personal cards and reimbursing, or using cash sometimes and reimbursing, if you're just like, hey, I need a $2 item from the store. Well, rather than do that, which is more paperwork and less clear, we're going to have a dedicated stupid credit card for homestead expenses. And then he needed something that he was just going to pay for and own that is very clearly a homestead expense. So, yeah, that's how we're separating things. I'm hoping that makes it a lot easier from a tracking standpoint and reporting standpoint back to y'all, because, like the homestead isn't really set up as a business at this point in the same way. Like some of it goes through project wise through Nicole Sauce Industries, but some of it's like we just pay for the stuff and it's never a tax write-off or anything. So I think the separation is really important, and I'm going to get like a frantic email from Cersei after talking about this publicly, probably. But anyway, this is why you need to work with somebody like Matthew to make sure that you're structured right. And I would never actually, like, if I find out something I just said is wrong and I'm not allowed to do that, I'm obviously not going to do that, because what I'm doing is talking to you guys about how we're developing our financial tracking systems here differently, because I want to take advantage of the tax code that exists and reduce our expenses as much as possible. So that's where we're at right now. I've already got like cows that I bought for using at workshops in separate freezers. Like it's a dedicated one from things we use in the household. But I think that structure is going to change too after I talk to Matthew long term. I think probably what will happen is the homestead will resell cow meat to us to use personally when we're using it personally. But to make that change, it'll be next year before that gets implemented because we already have the cows in for this year that we bought last year. So that's a lot of detail, but that's it. And I don't see any questions in the comments. So that's everything we've got for the show to do today. If you like the work we do here and want to support me and Tactical, you can do it in 2 ways. Give him a "we love your content" comment online. But if you want to support the show, you can do it by getting your coffee at hollerroast.com and by supporting our sponsors. They've been really good to us, and I appreciate that. So just find out more about us if you want to at livingfreeintennessee.com. With that, go out, make it a great week.